Hi Dwayne, so I presume you want to follow the hammer when you fire it to get this kind of effect. And then it resets the camera back to where it started from after the hammer goes all the way. So probably the main issue you've had is your room is just this size, like 640 by 480. And when you're setting up a camera, so like this camera, enable viewports, visible, this white bounding box is the size of the camera, and then the viewport itself, the actual game screen, is under here. So viewport 0, visible at start, and we want that viewport to be the size of the room, so 480 by 640. So now the bounding box matches the room itself. We can't really move this camera around because there's nowhere to move it to. Like, it's just going to show black. So the trick for this one really is to make your room double the size. So all I've done is I've doubled the background sprite, so it's longer. And then you can, if we check the viewport for this, so the camera, the Y position for the camera is there, which is halfway down the room. So half of 1280 is 640. That's the Y position. X position for the camera is 0. So 0 and 640 for the starting position for the camera. We want the camera to be a width of 480 and a height of 640, because that's the game room that we want to display. And then the viewport itself matches the size of the room we want to display, so 480 by 640. If you change the width and height, you will the images will either shrink or grow. So for example, if I just change this to 960 and 1280 and run the game, running the game, you'll see it's zoomed in. Or if we change it to 240 by 320, it's a much smaller room. It still plays in exactly the same way, it's just a small screen. So when you're setting the width and height for the viewport, it doesn't really matter what size you set the viewport to, because all it does really is set how big or small the game room is going to be, like on the actual screen. It doesn't affect what's shown on the screen, because that's set by the camera. This one here, the width and height, which is width height. So if we wanted to show a smaller part of the screen, we change this to 240, maybe 320. So you might have a minimap in this corner. And if we run the game now, I will change this back to 480 by 640 and run. All we're going to see is this small square, but we're going to see it in a 480 by 640. And because we zoomed in, the images look a bit stretched, a bit larger than they should be. So that's basically everything to do with it, really. You're going to need to see the code, aren't you? Okay. The actual code for this is very simple, straightforward. In the create event, I've got a boolean for launch. So that's whether we've clicked the mouse to fire or not, and we can't fire again until the launch is reset to false. Hammer speed, how fast the hammer moves upwards across the screen per step. Max distance, this is used for resetting the camera view. So I've set mine to 0, which means that once the hammer reaches a Y coordinate of 0, which is the top of the room, the camera and the hammer itself will reset to where they started from. Start Y is the hammer's Y, so after the hammer has reached the max distance of 0, it resets itself to where we placed it in the room, its Y coordinate. We don't actually need to, the X doesn't change in this at all, so we don't need to save the X value for any reason. Camera start X, this is equal to 0, so in the room, camera start X is getting this position, and camera start Y is getting this position, because it's the Y position of the camera that we're going to move up and down. Half view height, that is giving us half of the actual view, the camera view. I've used this variable because we want to center the view on the hammer. So we want to find out where the actual center Y coordinate of the view is, which is half view height. It's the height of the camera divided by 2. And the follow me point is, if you notice, the camera only starts following the hammer after a certain point, and this is the follow me point. I've set it to half of the view height away from the bottom of the room. I presume that's the kind of effect you were going for. And then the actual code to make it work, so if you click the mouse and we haven't already launched it, then launch becomes true. If launch is true, then the hammer moves upwards by the hammer speed every step. If the Y value of the hammer is less than max distance, which is 0, the top of the room, then reset the launch value and the hammer's Y goes back to where it started from. And to get the camera to follow the hammer, it's just this. So if the hammer's Y is less than or equal to the follow me point, the point where the camera, we want the camera to start following it, camera set view position, the view camera, so you can have more than one, but we're only ever going to use view camera 0 for this. So we only have one camera. The camera start X doesn't change, we always want the far left hand side, and we want the Y position of the camera to be half of the total view size away, because that will center the hammer in the middle of the screen. If we didn't have half view height, then I'll show you. You get this horrible effect where the hammer seems to jump to the top of the screen, and that's not really what we're looking for. So minus half view height. So follow the hammer if it's less than or equal the follow me point. Otherwise, we want the camera to be at its start X and start Y position, which is what we set at the start of the game.